let's talk about what's going on in the culture. Really, what's going on in the culture at large is mass deportation efforts. Donald Trump obviously ran on this platform. Um, this place is a country full of immigrants, and this place is a country that relies on immigrants. It's full of immigrant workers, immigrants that contribute to this country. But this campaign is beyond heavy-handed. This campaign is inhumane, as further illustrated, I think, by the story I'm about to share. So just so you know, there was a video, and Q and I were able to see this video, but we're not going to share the video because the video really doesn't lend itself to telling the story. But based on what we've seen, everything that we're about to share with you checks out. So I'll start. This is from the LA Times. From the inside of a truck, a young man shook his head as federal immigration officers banged on a door, and the boy's father repeatedly said in Spanish, "Don't open it." Quote, "Francisco rolled down the window," unquote, one agent said, addressing the father who was in the driver's seat. Another officer smashed the window, shattering it, and Francisco sped away as three bangs that sounded like gunshots rang out. The attempt by U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers in San Bernardino to question the men in the truck on Saturday morning, captured on video by a family member in the back seat, ended with allegations from federal authorities that officers were injured when the driver tried to, quote, run them down, unquote. In the course of the incident, the suspect drove his car at the officers and struck two CBP officers with his vehicle, unquote, read a statement from the Department of Homeland Security. Because of that, the official said a CBP officer discharged his firearm in self-defense. DHS did not answer follow-up questions about why officers were trying to arrest the man in the car or about the condition of the officers who were struck. Later at home, family members took photos of what appeared to be at least two bullet holes in the side of the truck. Now, if you want to watch this video, you can go to the LA Times Instagram page, just so that you don't think that we're saying anything that isn't based on what we were able to see. We have to still be journalists. So, but what we saw in the video were officers approaching the vehicle. Obviously, these people are speaking Spanish, and with the current climate, a lot of people are, I think, justifiably concerned about interacting with militarized police officers with their face covered in masks. And in the video, one person is approaching the vehicle he pulls out what appears to be a gun as he's approaching the vehicle. Now, these people are just sitting there interacting with the officers. One of the officers saying, "Hey, roll down your window." And he's saying, I'm not, do you need my ID? Like, tell me what this is about. Like that, effectually, that's what he's saying. And in short order, the officers pull out something to break the glass window. And once they break the glass, Francisco, the gentleman who's in the driver's seat, just drives the truck straight ahead. Okay, there's nobody in front of him. He just drives straight ahead. Okay, the officer that was approaching, that was in the frame of the shot, had walked to the side of the vehicle by this point. So when Francisco drove his vehicle, he drove it straight ahead. Okay, and you can tell by the what it is you're able to see out the front window that he had gone straight. He didn't turn to the right or left, and then nobody was struck. Okay, so unless there was some additional apparatus built into this vehicle, no officers were struck. And I highly doubt that's the case because I've seen the vehicle itself. But the police justified, and the immigration, ICE, and all these folks justified shooting the truck up by saying the officers were struck. Two officers were struck. And so this narrative that officers try to chronicle often when it comes to covering up their abuse of power and their violence toward Black and brown bodies is on full display in this video. And this is something that Q and I have covered for years. How police get to say to all the news outlets whatever they want. The news outlets repeat the story enough times because they trust the police, and then that becomes the narrative that's chronicled. Okay, I'll continue. This is from the L.A. Times. Okay, San Bernardino man was arrested after he protested immigration officers shooting at his truck. Francisco Longoria's truck was fired upon by a U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer on August 16th. Francisco Longoria's lawyers say more than a dozen armed federal agents arrived at their client's home early Thursday with armored personnel carrier. Federal officials say Longoria injured immigration officers and tried to run some over with his truck on August 16th, a claim his lawyers reject. Francisco Longoria, a San Bernardino man who was driving the truck when a masked U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer shot at it, was arrested, and they allege he assaulted officers during the incident. In a statement, Longoria's attorney said Homeland Security investigator agents arrived at the Longoria household at 4:18 a.m. Thursday with an armored personnel car, a type of military vehicle, and deployed more than a dozen fully armed and armored agents to swarm the home, breaking the locks on his gate. An agent called out to Longoria to come out using a bullhorn as agents stood at the door and pointed their rifles at the door and at the occupants inside, the attorney said. Okay, so that's the story. Q, I want to make sure you have enough time to share your thoughts here, so why don't you go first?
This is an example of my greatest fear. My greatest fear for everybody. Full disclosure, the mother of my children is Mexican. So my children are Black and Mexican in this United States, which makes them like a target times 2. And people think that my empathy with regard to this administration, its policies, the way that it thinks and behaves, are strictly because my family is in the crosshairs. What I've been trying to get people to understand since before the current administration took power is that it's not just my family that's in danger. Once they are able to do things like this to my family, they can do things like this to anyone's family. If this administration's goal was actually to get rid of the bad apples or the criminals, doing it without due process would still be wrong, but it wouldn't be as cruel if that was their actual intention. That, however, is not their intention. To get people that are criminals or to get people that are illegal is not their intention at all, because there are people here who have overstayed visas and not done proper paperwork from all over the world. So how come only Black and brown people are being affected by this administration and its policies and its procedures? They say they want these people who are criminals and bad people, but they're going to arrest people at work and at immigration court. So they are showing their true colors every day. And this gentleman can get shot, right? Because they don't know that he'll survive them discharging their weapon at him and his family. When they get their windows broken out, which should not be proper procedure for what should have been a routine traffic stop at worst, or a without due process kidnapping, which is what it seems like if you're in that position, and these masked people that don't have to identify themselves and don't have to read you your rights can approach your car, demand you get out, and destroy your car if you don't. And then if you, because you're afraid and don't want yourself and your family to be kidnapped or shot or deported without due process, without you even having an opportunity to present or provide proof or documentation that you are here, in fact, legally, then yeah, you might run away because these guys already have their guns out. I can't see their faces and they busted the windows out in my car. But law enforcement, and with extreme overreach and extreme protection, can attempt to unalive you and then claim to be the victims themselves with just their word against yours. And because they said so, it's assumed to be true. So an example of one of my biggest fears coming to life.
I just want to add a couple of things. First, it is appropriate for any being with a nervous system to fight back or run away if it is scared. Okay. So running in and of itself should never be considered a crime. The other thing is that police do this sort of lying all the time. The only ones we hear about are when they get caught up or when there's video.